What's up guys, this is LBT from Combat Culture, and today we're going to cover the 6 different styles that you'll find in Muay Thai fighters. Stay tuned. So when it comes to a fighter style, there's 2 big factors that plays a big role. One is their overall build, meaning are they tall, are they short, are they strong, are they nimble, are they explosive, are they quick? And also the second is their personality. Are they aggressive? Are they passive? Do they take time to assess and analyze? Or do they just want to go in guns blazing? So those are just 2 of the factors that play into what determines the type of fighter you are. Another big factor is what your coach sees and how they assess your skills. Back in the day, I don't know so much about now, but at least I know back in the day in Thailand, when a fighter enters a camp, the trainers would usually take a look at the fighter and determine what type of style would be most effective for the fighter. So there's an old saying that styles make fights, and because of that, there's often times where you're gonna have fighters that excel in more than one style. And that's because, you may have a game plan going into a fight, but for whatever reason, that game plan just isn't working out. Corner may just say, hey, it's time to make some adjustments. Let's go ahead and go with plan B. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as you continue to develop your own style too, that you don't have to be just pigeonholed in one specific style. So the first style we're going to cover today is Muay Khao. And these type of fighters specializes in knees, and they are very high pressure and most effective in mid and inside range. Now, typically these type of fighters will have a very high guard as they bulldoze their way in, trying to get into mid-range for a long knee or close range to engage in a clinch to throw down some nasty knees. One of the most dangerous aspects of a Muay Khao fighter is that they tend to overwhelm their opponents as they constantly pressure in. And this can be particularly dangerous as we go into the later rounds of a fight as both fighters start showing bits of fatigue. Typically, one of the biggest drawbacks of being a Muay Khao fighter is that you have to tank your way inside, which means you're gonna have to take a fair amount of damage to get inside your most effective zone. And they do tend to have a bit of trouble against fighters that like to stay on the outside, for example, Muay Femur or Muay Tae fighters. And some examples of famous Muay Khao fighters from the golden age, you've got Diesel Noi, who is probably the poster child for Muay Khao fighters. There's also Chumokpet. Those 2 fighters are from the golden era. Some examples of modern fighters would include Pech Morakat, Pech Bunchu, and Yothin. The latter 2 are from FA Group, which is one of the most well-known high-level clinching gyms in Thailand. And the next style we're gonna cover is Muay Mat. And a Muay Mat fighter, very much like a Muay Khao fighter, is a high pressure fighter that, rather relying on their knees, relies more on their hands and leg kicks. So whereas a Muay Khao fighter is typically taller, Muay Mat fighters more often times than not are going to be a little bit shorter. Not always the case, but more often times than not. Now, these type of fighters are typically most effective at the mid-range, and because of the nature of the style, it does require the fighter to have a good amount of endurance because they're gonna have to do a good amount of tanking. They may have some trouble against Muay Khao fighters and Muay Sok fighters. So some examples of famous Muay Mat fighters would include Sagat, Koban, Wanchanoi, Anawat, Samson, and Ramon Deckers. And probably the most famous modern Muay Mat fighter is the Iron Man himself, Rodtang. And the next style we're gonna cover is a favorite amongst many, and that is Muay Femur. So while a Muay Femur fighter might not always be the strongest or the fastest, most often times they are the ones with the higher fight IQ. Some of the most common traits you'll find in a Muay Femur is that they will drive in with feints or they'll wait for the perfect counter. These type of fighters are generally calm and collected with great spatial awareness. They have a good understanding of distance and angles, and they capitalize that with precision and timing. Muay Femur style fighters generally do well against all other styles, although they can be overwhelmed by really high pressure fighters such as Muay Mat and Muay Bouk fighters. So when it comes to examples of great Muay Femur fighters, we're essentially covering a who's who in the list of GOATs within Muay Thai. And we're talking about names such as Samat, Karahat, and Kansak, just to name a few from the golden age, and Olay as well. We've talked about more contemporary fighters. We're talking about the likes of Sanchai, Tawan Chai, Superbon, and Lerdzilla, just to name a few. And I do want to give a special shout out to the Sijapo twins, because when it comes to the aesthetic aspect of a Muay Femur fighters, I think they essentially really channel, you know, what a classic Muay Femur fighter looks like. So if you haven't had a chance to check them out, definitely recommend you take a look at some of their training videos. So the next type of fighter we're going to cover is one of my personal favorites, and that's Muay Tae. And Muay Tae fighters specialize in kicks. Now, this may be confusing because I think kicks are so heavily associated with Muay Thai, but I think what makes a Muay Tae fighter stand out is that their kicks cause maximum damage. So a Muay Tae fighter is most dangerous usually in the long to mid-range. And they know how to work that range with jabs and very effective teeps. And then what they typically do is they use those jabs and teeps to set up either a leg kick, a body kick, or a head kick. And that's what the most dangerous thing about a Muay Thai fighter is you really don't know which way it's coming. And the thing is that they can mix it up on the left side or the right side. Now, some examples of Muay Thai fighters include Apide, Muay Khao, Singdom, Pampayak, Superlek, and Yotsanklai. Now, the next type of fighter is, in my opinion, the scariest type of fighter, and that is Muay Sok. A Muay Sok fighter specializes in their elbows. So what a Muay Sok fighter typically does is that they make their way inside, either within close range or into the clinch, and they start firing off their elbows. Now, the scary thing about elbows, aside from the fact that they can knock you out and put you to sleep, is that they can cut you. And if you get nasty enough of a cut, the fight's over. So having said that, a Muay Sok fighter is really effective against a Muay Mat fighter or a Muay Bouk fighter, fighters who are aggressively coming in. They may, however, have trouble with Muay Khao fighters because they both operate within the same range. And also they both are likely very strong clinchers. And another style they may have trouble against is going to be the Muay Femur, who likes to keep their distance, and they may have trouble getting inside their effective range. It should also be worth noting that both Muay Sok and Muay Khao fighters typically are really good at clinching, although they are not exclusively good clinchers. There is another style that's called Muay Plum, but for the purpose of this video, we're just gonna keep it down to the 6 styles. So 2 examples of famous Muay Sok fighters would be Yat Kunpan and Muay Thai. So the last style we're going to cover today is probably the most exciting style to watch, especially with the introduction of One Championship's brand of Muay Thai, and that's going to be the Muay Bouk. Now, Muay Bouk fighters, very much like your Muay Mat fighters, are high pressure, very aggressive fighters. They just come forward, 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 like a tank, bulldozing you down. Now, the difference between a Muay Bouk fighter and a Muay Mat fighter is a Muay Bouk will typically adjust to the type of fighter they're up against, which means that aside from just relying on their punches or their leg kicks, they'll use their elbows and use their knees. The name of the game is just to bulldoze and move forward and run down your opponent. So some of the drawbacks of being a Muay Bouk fighter is that it does require a sizable gas tank, really just to keep the engine going for all 3 to 5 rounds. And it does also require a high sense of durability too, just because you're essentially gonna be tanking a lot of damage. And with that comes the recovery time. Right, so whereas a Muay Femur fighter might come out of a 5-round banger with, you know, nothing more than a scratch or so, Muay Bouk fighters, more oftentimes than not, it's going to come out more banged up, and because of that, may have a longer recovery time before they can jump into their next fight. And just some examples of Muay Bouk fighters would include Santanoy, Yotwicha, and the man who yields to no one, Sexon. So hopefully you guys learned something new and enjoyed the video. I want to hear from you guys. Who are your favorite fighters for any particular style, and what do you consider yourself? So if you enjoyed the video, please do us a solid and hit the like and subscribe button. We'll be coming out with a lot more videos in the next coming weeks, and we would love to include some subjects that you guys want to see. Until then, keep training, stay safe, and be healthy. We'll see you guys in the next one.